I think for the need for precision, soldiers have a unique language that they use to communicate one to another. Things like alpha, tango, the whole alphabet. You don't say A, B, C, D. They use alpha, tango, and all that stuff. But then there's one phrase that they normally use, and I want us to focus on, even as we bring a point for the episode today. The word is mission creep. Mission creep refers to a situation where they are derailed, maybe unknowingly or knowingly, from their target, and they end up where they were not supposed to be. It's called mission creep. In the episodes in this new series that we started, we are talking about the power of tracking and timelines in our pursuit of purpose. In other words, if we want to go to the direction that we really need to take, we need to be on the straight and on the narrow. And whatever is going to lead us to be on the straight and the narrow is none other than tracking and timelines. Of course, there are other things that you can be able to use, but we're going to need tracking and timelines. And I want us to discuss mission creep in this episode today. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Life Signatures podcast with Lawrence Namale. Lawrence is a life coach, author, and keynote speaker who loves to tackle different topics on purpose, productivity, and resilience. His mission in life is to awaken all your boundless possibilities available in you. Life Signatures podcast is dedicated to bring to reality every single person who knows that deep down in their gut, there's got to be more to life than this. And now, here is your host, Lawrence Namale.
We are all excited about pursuing a goal to its logical conclusion, starting a project and finishing the project. In fact, the human being is one of the most goal-oriented species in the face of the earth as compared to any other species for obvious reasons. We are the higher species, so to speak. But we love pursuing stuff. We love setting goals. We are always goal-seeking, always going out there to make sure that things get done. But here is the challenge. There is a process between starting and finishing. There is the in-between. And for the most part, the in-between, if it's not governed well, you find that you have mission creep. Either you stall, you pick other shiny objects that you are not supposed to take on them in the first place anymore, and you find that the journey that you are on is never really complete. The project that you are doing is never really attained. I have a son who is very excited about very many things. The other day he knew that he wanted to buy a particular watch. And so I gave him the money to go and buy a watch and so on. And when he got there, what happened? There were a myriad, examples. There were very many versions of different types of watches. He ended up buying something that he didn't like at the end of the day, something that was not what he really wanted initially. And that's what mission creep is all about. That if you don't have some guiding, some straight and narrow, something that constricts you to the path of your goal and of your purpose, chances are that you might have this mission creep thing coming to you. We say that soldiers have this phrase that they use to refer to situations where they veer off their intended target, their intended mission. It is called mission creep. It's unplanned and at times ends up committing the mission. Longer time and more expenses than earlier anticipated because of mission creep. Believe it or not, there was an interesting character in high school. that I attended. This guy, I forget the name, the real name, but I don't know. Maybe I should say his name online here, but I'm not going to say the name. When I was in Form 1, the guy was actually in Form 2. When I was in Form 2, he was still in Form 2. When I went to Form 3, the guy went back to Form 1. For some reason, the school administration would allow this guy to ping pong like that and have these kinds of mission creep in his life. And I was wondering, why in the world is this guy doing what he's doing? And someone hinted to me that there's a sponsor that paid a lot of money for him. And this guy has always been wanting to make sure that he exhausts every single penny of that particular money. It is interesting. The issue is that this man did not have a due date. When he is going to get out of that high school and finish his studies, there was absolutely no due date, and therefore he will ping pong himself all he wanted. And that's one of the biggest problems that we face today in society. People ping ponging themselves in terms of their purpose, in terms of their goals, in terms of their projects, and never really finishing. That's why I'm saying there's the importance of timelines, the importance of tracking in your purpose pursuit. If you could stop all the traffic right now, you're listening to me. And I asked you a question. Do you have wishes? Do you have dreams? Do you have desires? Do you even have goals? Chances are that you do have some of those things. And maybe chances are that you've written some of those things down. And chances are that you've not written them down. I mean, that's just another thing. I don't want to go into it. But even if they are written down and even if you have all those things in place, the next best question I'm going to ask you is this. When is the due date? And after that, I'm going to ask you this. Do you have a tracking mechanism that is going to convey you to the due date? If you don't have those two things, the due date and the tracking mechanism, guess what? Mission creep. You're gonna wander like Cain, wandering like a vagabond all over the earth. I mean, no direction, no productivity, nothing happening in your life because you lack time, you lack tracking. You don't have those two systems. Whether you're the president, and by the way, it works for individuals or for countries, for organizations, whether you're the president or the pauper of a country, if you don't have a time frame and you don't have a tracking mechanism for the pursuit that you're having, it's not gonna happen. That's why in big term UN terminologies you hear this thing of SDGs 2030, I don't know, all those things and stuff like that. The tracking mechanism helps us to know where we are at. It gives us some constriction, some responsibility, some accountability. I end this podcast today by narrating a story and quoting the words verbatim from one of the most celebrated pianists on the face of the earth. He was called Arthur Rubinstein. Rubinstein was so much a virtuoso to such an extent that at times he didn't need to practice. He didn't need to do any application of himself in his craft. And this is what he said. He said, I must confess with sorrow that I was not very proud of myself. The dissipated life I was leading, my constant preoccupation with the opposite sex, the late hours spent nightly with my intellectual friends, the theaters, the shows, the rich food at lunch and dinner, and the worst of all, my passionate attraction for all of this never allowed me to concentrate on my work. I preferred my concerts using the large repertoire that I had accumulated, but without the urge to play better, without referring to the text, relying entirely on my fine memory and my clever acquired knowledge of how to use certain anchors to arouse the audience to the right pitch of enthusiasm. To put it in a nutshell, I couldn't boast of one single piece which I had played entirely faithful to the text and without some technical shortcomings. I knew that I was born a true musician, but instead of developing my talent, I was living on the capital of it. End quote. This is a man who has recognized the facts that he has mission creep in his life. His life is supposed to be in a particular direction. He's supposed to be committed to it. He's supposed to be productive. But he's using yesterday's manna, to use the Bible's language. He's using yesterday's manna. You remember the story of the manna when the children of Israel were coming out of Egypt and so on and so forth, and they were told, we're going to give you food from the angels' food and so on. And the only thing you're supposed to do with that food is don't keep it overnight. And that's what most people do when you lack timelines, when you lack tracking systems for your purpose, pursuit, and for your productivity. You end up doing yesterday's anointing. You end up doing yesterday's work. And you're so proud of yesterday's achievements and yesterday's accomplishments, such that you are not careful about what is required of you today. You're not accountable, you're not responsible of what is required of you today. And you end up without time, without tracking. You end up like a ship on the sea, without a coxswain, without direction, being tossed about by the waves, ending up just about anywhere that the waves will take it. And that's the example that I can give, the analogy of very many people's lives today, because they lack a timeline, a due date for their mission, a due date for their project, a due date for their goal. You want to raise how many millions? When is the due date? And what tracking mechanism have you put in place towards that end? As long as you're lacking in that, there's going to be the so-called mission creep. There's going to be what Rubenstein told us, that instead of developing yourself, you'll be living on the capital of your talent, the capital of your pursuit, the capital of your purpose, instead of developing it. You know what capital is? It is the initial investment that you put into something so that it can become something else. But capital is supposed to be grown. It's supposed to produce and produce and produce. You cannot continue living on your capital. And you know why you're living on your capital? You know how we're living on our capital? You know why we are comfortable in our mediocrity, in our ordinariness, in our averageness? It is because we lack a timeline, timetable. We lack a due date. We lack a tracking system that is going to help us and put us on the straight and on the narrow. Tomorrow we're going to continue with these thoughts, but until then, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Life Signatures Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to Life Signatures Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or visit our website at lifesignatures.libsyn.com. Life Signatures Radio, fresh, clean, and inspiring.